Hello, World Water Week participants. Thank you for joining our panel discussion. I'm Laura Kohler, Head of HR, Stewardship and Sustainability for Kohler Company, as well as the Chair of Kohler's Trust for Clean Water. Today, I am representing Kohler Company, and Kohler Company is a global company, about 148 years old, and 45,000 people around the world in places like India, the UK, Europe, China, Latin America, and of course, the United States. A lot of what we do in kitchen and bath and power and hospitality is based on water. So water is at the core of what we do. I'm here today with an extremely talented panel of partners, and we're going to explore how effective solutions can be scaled to create impact in addressing the world's water crisis. The UN's World Meteorological Organization cites that over the past 2 decades, the planet's combined supplies of surface water, groundwater, and water found in soil, snow, and ice have declined by 1 centimeter per year. The UN also estimates that 25% of cities globally are experiencing regular water shortages. And according to water.org, an estimated $260 billion is lost globally each year due to the lack of basic water and sanitation. We know that cooking, manufacturing, farming, sanitation, fashion, technology, conservation, none of it happens without water. So, the importance of our discussion today. Addressing the water crisis requires commitments from private and public sector, innovation and implementation of solutions in communities that lack basic wash resources, and educating people living in the more developed regions so that they can shift their behaviors and be more mindful of their consumption of water. For the purpose of today's discussion, we will focus on innovation and partnerships from the community for the community, and how nonprofit organizations can help the private sector throughout the innovation process, advising on what the community needs, helping to secure community buy-in, and then working with the community to make sure the innovations are scaled for maximum impact. So, I've got some amazing panelists. I'm first going to start with Water Mission's George Green IV, CEO and President of Water Mission. Incredibly talented global team of engineering focused on engineering solutions to bring safe water to all. And George is going to tell us a little bit more about that soon. Lindsay Stradley, co-founder and executive director of Sanergy, an organization based in Nairobi, which demonstrates that innovation in sanitation is happening real time and making an impact at scale. And then there's George McGraw, founder and CEO of Dig Deep, a US-based organization delivering wash solutions to underserved communities. And our very own Director of Innovation for Good and Sustainability at Kohler Company, Ratish Nabuthiri. Ratish leads our internal incubator for business solutions for a social purpose, and leads our internal teams and encourages them to hit our net zero 2025 sustainability goals. So I am going to pass the mic, so to speak, to my panelists, and I'm going to start with George Green. And George, would you tell us a little bit about Water Mission?
Thanks, Laura. Yes, so I serve as our CEO and president, and we describe ourselves as a Christian engineering nonprofit, and we address water and sanitation needs in 3 types of contexts. The first one is disaster relief, and that's get in and help as fast as you possibly can. And the second one is refugee work, which often can start with disaster relief, but refugees are in refugee camps for an estimated 14 to 17 years on average these days. And so when you think about working in those kinds of situations, you really need to be planning in the tens of years. And then the final context is community development. And this is focused on implementing many municipal water projects that are comprehensive in nature to, of course, include getting access to safe water flowing. But also there's a huge emphasis on building out the people, processes, and systems to be able to run and maintain and plan for future, to be able to ensure sustainability. And I want to go a little bit deeper on community development. And so if we could advance to the next slide. This is an image from a project in Tanzania, and this community is known as Zeze. It's home to about 5,500 people. And what we're looking at is the heart of the project. And this red arrow that's about to appear on the screen is actually the water source, so the borehole, and it's powered with solar. There's no power where we work. We also have some basic treatment that takes place in the form of erosion chlorination, and then treated water stored in these tanks that you see here. We can move on to the next slide. This is an aerial view of the same community of Zeze, and the blue line is the distribution line that feeds water out into the community of 5,500 people. What we were just looking at, it's actually located in the top middle of the screen. And as you look at the diamonds that are on the screen, those are tap stands. Those are access points where the community comes to get water. We typically put in one access point for every 50 homes, and that's what you see here with this image. And again, this is a community development project. So we estimate that we spend somewhere between 500 and 700 hours investing in this group of people that has just popped up on the screen. And the idea with that is that, again, this is focused on operations and maintenance and financial planning. And while we donate the capital cost for the project into the community, the ongoing operation and maintenance is expected to be covered through user fees. So this community has actually been running with their project for about 4 years. They've averaged somewhere around 15,000 liters of water per day sold into the community. And after covering their day-to-day operational costs, they've actually saved over $7,500 to be able to replace a solar panel in 30 years or a pump or things like that. So comprehensive in nature, but that's a high-level overview of kind of who we are and what we do. And back to you, Laura.
Thanks, George. Pretty powerful. I'd like to move really to Nairobi, and Lindsay's there and represents Sanergy and as CEO and co-founder, as executive director and co-founder, and really interested in hearing the work that you've been doing, Lindsay.
Great, thanks so much, Laura. Yes, as a leader of co-founder and leader of Sanergy, we work across the whole value chain, the whole sanitation value chain. So in the first half of the value chain is what you see here, is safe end-to-end sanitation services. So we design and manufacture waterless toilet facilities. We then sell and support the operations throughout the communities where we work. So primarily informal settlements and other non-sewered areas within rapidly growing cities. We have Fresh Life Toilet as what's pictured sort of in the top middle there, which is a private shared facility. So think of this in a plot, an informal settlement that may have usually 10 households and will share 1 or 2 facilities based on the space available with their neighbors. And then below that is an in-home facility, an in-home toilet that where people have the space available can have a private container-based sanitation facility in their own household. We then collect, so the emptying and transport of that waste through whatever transportation means are safe and accessible to the really dense communities where we work. And as we go to the next slide, you'll see that sanitation waste is then aggregated, it's sort of over on the left-hand side of the screen, with other organic waste. So we take a full zero waste circular economy approach to taking on that sanitation waste, a range of other organic waste streams. We then treat and convert it into a range of, upcycle it into valuable end products. So the first is an insect protein for black soldier fly larvae, which then feed or excellent animal feed for fish, pigs, poultry. Then the residue, or what's called the frass, from black soldier fly production, we then make into both briquettes, which we use to make our own operations more sustainable and biomass fuel briquette, as well as sell into industrial partners. And then also a lot of that frass then we use for composting and producing a high quality organic fertilizer, which then obviously is used to raise healthier, better, or grow healthier, better foods by our farmers throughout Kenya, which is where we work primarily. And those animal and plant products, obviously, then as those become waste, that full circular economy approach continues. So excited to join the conversation today to talk about how we can bring this sort of product-based, end-to-end approach to solving some of the water challenges in front of us.
Thanks, Lindsay. So I'm going to move on to dig deep, and George McGraw, your organization is one of our newest partners, and we were so pleased to discover the opportunity to work with you because there are needs right here in our own backyard of our headquarters, which is based in the United States. So George, let's hear more about Dig Deep.
Thanks, Laura. I'm so pleased to be with all of you today. So, I mean, when most people think of the water and sanitation crisis, they think of some of the places we just visited, places like Kenya, for instance, low-income countries. In fact, the water crisis is right here in the US and in other high-income countries too. Amanda, will you take us to the next slide? Most people are startled to find out that there are more than 2 million Americans in the richest democracy on earth who still don't have a tap or a toilet at home. And we've been trying to understand the various dimensions of this problem through research projects that we've done with major universities and government agencies. And unsurprisingly, in the US, race is still the strongest predictor of whether or not you and your family will have access to water in 2022. Indigenous folks, Native Americans, are 19 times more likely than white families not to have running water. Black and Latino families are twice as likely. And this is happening in the whole country across all 50 states. And unfortunately, for the first time in US history, that number is growing. We also know it has a massive economic impact. Laura mentioned that water.org and others have done a good job of trying to understand the overall impact to the global economy that the water crisis is having, to the tune of more than $200 billion a year. Nearly 9 billion of that at least is here in the US. That's money we're bleeding out of the economy every year that we allow these millions of Americans to live without taps and toilets, ironically, that the rest of us kind of take for granted. So in the next slide, you'll see a collage of pictures. Dig Deep takes a really holistic approach to this problem. The core of our work, the thing that sort of lights us up, like I think probably everyone on this call, are water and sanitation access projects, really building community-based infrastructure similar to the projects you've seen here, both on-grid and off-grid, sometimes utilizing new technologies and products, some just new to the US that have been used abroad in many contexts, some completely new to the marketplace, things like atmospheric water generation or really advanced filtration technologies. And we do that work on the Navajo Nation, the country's largest reservation in the Southwest, along the US-Mexico border in the border colonias of Texas, and on our Appalachia Water Project, which is parts of rural West Virginia and Kentucky. And we back that work up with a whole suite of research projects, mobilization and public education work, and sector building. A lot of our friends on this call today work in a networked approach with hundreds of other WASH organizations that are based in the US and working abroad. But Dig Deep remains the only WASH organization that's based in the US and entirely focused on the US. And so we're trying to build a more networked approach with partners like Kohler, other partners from private industry, other international WASH nonprofits, and other water and wastewater trade groups here in the US to really solve this problem, hopefully once and for all.
Thanks, George. The work that you all do is super powerful, and you do really honestly transform communities. So really interesting to see. And I know our associate population is very energized by all three of these partnerships. Water Mission, pretty much the longest one we've had out of the three. Sanergy, I had the opportunity to actually walk your headquarters in Nairobi, got to see the installations, and got to see the vertical integration of the work that you do, Lindsay. And George, I'm looking forward to getting to meet you in person and also getting to walk some of the communities that you've helped transform. So on to Ratish Namboothiri, who has one of the best jobs ever at Kohler Company, which is leading innovation for good and sustainability. And Ratish, would you tell us a little bit about your work?
Absolutely. And I will concur by saying I do have one of the best jobs in the company. I'm really proud of it. So I lead our innovation for good and environmental sustainability strategies. And, to Laura's point earlier, Kohler is a large global brand. And, one thing we've done is over the years, formalized our sustainability and social impact strategy under the framework of believing in better. which really underscores this operating philosophy that we have, that our best can always be better, continue to improve ourselves. Better for the planet we share, better for the communities we serve, and better for the lives we touch through our products and services. And under believing in better are three of our key pillars: better planet, better communities, and better lives. And better planet really is about our environmental sustainability strategy, which is about continuing to improve our operational environmental footprint, while also creating environmentally friendly products that can help our customers and consumers reduce their own environmental footprint. So we're really seeking to go beyond our four walls and trying to bring our consumers and our supply chain partners into the equation to help them reduce their own footprint as well. The better communities work is really where we seek to address some of the long-term health, well-being, and prosperity issues for our communities, and bring, by bringing equitable access to water, sanitation, and hygiene, education, and even arts and historical preservation in the communities where we work. And then better lives. Through this program, we're really seeking to make positive impact on the lives of our associates and customers. And we do this by creating an inclusive culture, workplace culture within our company, and also trying to create equitable communities in places where we work. And one of the programs that really enables us to do that is what we're going to be talking about today, is Innovation for Good. Let's go to the next slide, please. So Innovation for Good, as I said, think of us as an internal incubator, a small business unit within Kohler. And our commission is to find new ways to bring innovations to market that have a social purpose. And the social purpose can be anything from bringing clean drinking water to communities that don't have it, to clean water, safe sanitation and hygiene practices, or even other solutions that help address our long-term environmental goals. So within Innovation for Good, we have three dimensions to it. First is our products with purpose. Really, this is where we work on bringing solutions like our Pour Flush toilet, which we have in the market today, or intelligent power system. These are solutions that we bring to market, and then we work with partners like Water Mission. George Green here from Water Mission has really helped and has been instrumental in helping us scale these products and make an impact in communities through these innovations. The second part of Innovation for Good is iPrize, something that I'm really, really proud of and excited about. Our internal Shark Tank, so to speak, where we invite all of our associates. This is really how we drive that inclusivity, is we invite everybody to pitch their ideas, social innovation ideas, through our competition. And then we pick the best ideas and fund them and then coach them to help incubate those ideas over a period of 12 months. Again, the goal being, after the incubation period, we'd like to hand it off to one of our businesses to commercialize those ideas. And then finally, the Waste Lab, a really cool concept that came out of the Innovation for Good program a few years ago, where we take our industrial waste streams and convert them into products of commercial value, something that really helps us attain our long-term net zero waste to landfill goal by 2035 across our operations. Laura, with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ratish. I would just say that one of the most powerful things about the work that all of us do is how do we activate innovation and energy focused on purpose. And, all of you are doing that. We're doing that with our 45,000 associates, getting them to innovate and participate in sustainability and innovation for good. George, you activate that energy when your engineers work with communities and combine their energies with yours and ideas to create solutions. Lindsay, the way you have activated community in Nairobi is fascinating, right? And making people care about waste, care about the fact that it actually could be revenue generating potentially, and getting everybody involved. And then George, you getting people involved in the solution for their community that could be very unique to their culture, and you get them involved in not only implementing but also innovating. So this power of activation, the power of partnerships to create the solution, I think you're all onto something. And I want to jump into the questions now. And I want to say that you're each leaders in water, sanitation, and hygiene in that space. And I want you to be able to articulate the biggest challenge that you see from your organization's point of view. Let's start with Dig Deep, George McGraw, then go to Lindsay at Sanergy, and then Water Mission, George Green. So let's go to George McGraw first.
Absolutely. So the biggest challenge, I think, is similar to the climate crisis. I think it comes from a sort of apathy that we face, or a lack of education and excitement. I think one of the things that we are trying to do as an organization is really harness the power of storytelling to give people an emotional connection to this issue that they otherwise might take for granted. So many of us that come from high-income countries have never lived a day without running water. That's not true for the almost 50% of the 80 people that work at Dig who have. And so on my own team, I can see these dynamics, folks who wake up every morning and really understand intimately like what it is to live without access to this resource, and what it is to plan your whole day around how much clean water you can have or you can get. And those, including myself, who have never had to make that calculation from like a survival standpoint. But it really is going to take connecting those two groups through storytelling with each other in order for us to present a united front and to get people interested. I think the irony in the US is that not only do we have probably the largest amount of any developed country of people without running water, we also have people that consume the most water per capita in the world. And so how do we use the resources that well-resourced group has to build access for others? And how do we use that knowledge and that passion for the resource that comes from not having it and share that with folks who maybe have never had to think that way before?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Storytelling is a great connector and paints pictures that words can sometimes, sometimes a written word doesn't convey it, but getting people to tell their personal stories crosses borders and biases and all sorts of things that sometimes we can't do with an analysis or a report. So Lindsay, what about you? What's our biggest challenge?
Yeah, I'll give you two quick ones that for us are just so intimately tied. I mean, one is cities. I love cities. They are the core of obviously who we serve. We serve 150,000 people in Nairobi and Kenya's other cities every single day. But the fact of rapid urbanization is a lot of what is putting pressure on existing infrastructure or places that lack the infrastructure. So today, half the world's population lives in cities, and that's just going to keep increasing, both as a proportion and as total number of people. And most of those people in rapidly growing cities live in informal settlements that don't have access to water or safely managed sanitation. There just isn't that existing infrastructure. And so, we need to kind of catch up and then keep pace with this really rapid growing pace. So I think urbanization is key. The second one I'd throw out is water pollution caused by lack of safely managed sanitation. I think too often these are thought of as there's water and there's sanitation. There are more than 4 billion people in the world who don't have access to safely managed sanitation, which means they may have a toilet, but that waste is not being treated. It's basically going to stay in and around the communities where they live. And that obviously has real consequences for whatever points of water access that they may have. And so I think that interconnection of lack of infrastructure and in cities and the lack of safely managed sanitation are the key challenges that we're really focused on for around both water and sanitation.
Yeah, and how it's linked to public health, right? Huge.
Totally. Yeah.
And George Green.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think this is the obvious one. There's a resource limitation. And as you think globally, the global water crisis is a third of the global population, 2.2 billion people. And if you look at the money that's being invested in trying to resolve that, it's just not enough. And the size. And then the other thing too is, I believe the estimate for the average cost to bring water to somebody in a country like the United States with a traditional municipal system is somewhere around $500 per person. And when you look at the cost that is typically tied to doing that in a developing country, there's almost shock when you start talking about like a $50 per person type level. And so there are just these disconnects in what does it cost to get it done, and also in the money that is needed to be invested in the solutions. And then the third piece is, we're an engineering organization. We didn't invent engineering. This has been around for a long time. And so as you look at, there are proven solutions. In Europe has access to safe drinking water. The United States does too. And so when you look at, okay, well, how is that possible? Why does it work that way? And what happens when you get into developing countries with solutions? There's a huge issue with the lack of regulation. There's a huge issue with the lack of technical expertise and people that are implementing solutions. And that environment kind of creates a perfect storm for a free-for-all where you just have a lot of issues that are very problematic. So yeah, it's a complex issue in many ways, but it's also very straightforward in many ways too.
So Ratish, I'm going to go directly to you on a question, and on somebody who has really sight lines into the front line of product development, which you see every day, and you came from that world. What solutions to address water and conservation access is really the biggest challenges in that process of new product development that you see?
Yeah, great question, Laura. So my response is going to be a little bit of a spin-off of George Green's. So, we when we think about Kohler, our products, we're about design. We design products to delight our customers. We design products so that we can offer a gracious user experience to our customers. We design for cost, we design for functionality, we design for the environment, and then we design for reliability and life, right? The challenge though is, when we're designing for a community that does not have access to such basic services, are there certain standards of performance requirements that we should be designing to? And there really aren't. And I feel like as a product development community, as an engineering community, like George mentioned, just having, as a collective, collective wash sector, if we were to establish a minimum set of performance requirements across each category, whether it's a water filtration system or a hygiene station or a sanitation system or whatever it is, if there was a set of minimum performance requirements that we would establish collectively for the sector and have everybody design to that and be better than that if they wanted to, I think that would be phenomenal. It would bring everyone to the same level playing field and give us an opportunity to bring our best innovations to market. So I think that truly is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So next question for all of you. What obstacles have you faced when it comes to having an impact in the regions where you operate or in your area of expertise? So obstacles, major obstacles. Let's start with Lindsay at Sanergy, then go to George at Water Mission, then Ratish, then George at Dig Deep.
Great, thanks, Laura. Yeah, I think and connecting back to what some of my fellow panelists have talked about, we've taken such a focus, or had such a focus on co-creating the products and services that we offer with the communities where we're offering them. So majority of our team, are from the informal settlements and the communities where we work. And with them, we developed what we thought are just like the perfect products, the perfect toilets, basically, and then the whole value chain to connect to that. And then around 2017, we worked with the city to do what's called a shit flow diagram, or an SFD, that helps to map out like where is all the waste going. And we realized that as much as like our part, our safely managed waste from our network was growing and was great, there was still this huge portion of unsafely managed waste coming from existing pit latrines, and that we're not going to, overnight replace those. And so it wasn't a matter of like, our product was great, and those who, could kind of easily switch or take that up were doing so. But where you had already this existing, an existing unimproved pit latrine there, how could we kind of meet them where they were, as opposed to kind of coming with the product innovation that we had? So it was much more on like service innovation. And so that challenge, that obstacle of this huge install base, I guess, of really, really poor quality or really poorly managed, we'll say, pit latrines. And what we've done in that case, so now in several communities throughout Nairobi, working now as we expand into both Kisumu and Eldoret, understanding communities there, to then work with the manual emptiers of pit latrines and create, sort of professionalize them, create standards, create ways that actually that waste can be safely emptied and transported. And then we're actually collecting that waste to kind of bring it back into the safe sanitation value chain so that it can be safely treated and ideally reused as well. And so just flipping, if you think of it, if those of you here at World Water Week familiar with SFDs, sort of taking those like red bars and making them green now, where they're suddenly being actually properly, safely managed. So I think that was the first thing that comes to mind, where it was an obstacle to kind of how we had been approaching things in the first part of our journey with our communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Nairobi's massive, right? So inconsistency and those red bars that lie outside are, do you continue to tackle them one at a time and try to figure out how to bring better service, better supports?
Yeah, no, I think that's the whole key of, it's called like citywide inclusive sanitation. That I think to get to a city like Nairobi, like millions of people, it's going to take everything. We need sewers, we need all sorts of off-grid approaches. There's not one solution, but a lot of products and service and capacity building from those who are already working, the guys who are actually already emptying pit latrines that are committed, they are the sanitation workers that make so much of the city run. How do we improve their standards and improve the quality of safe waste management throughout the communities that they're serving? So it's all of the above.
Yeah, right. Wow. George Green, to you, obstacles.
Yeah, as I think about this is our 22nd year of existence, and where we came and first steps into the work that we do, we came with a very strong technical background, very strong engineering background. What we really didn't have a great understanding for was the need for the comprehensive solutions around building out the management models and the support models and this commonly referred to term of community development. And what does that mean? And what are all the things that have to be covered by that? And so I think it's very, there's a lot, the projects are deep. There's a lot that has to go into that, and just understanding that just from an internal perspective, and what are the skills that we need to be able to deploy and to be able to support these things. That's a major one. The other thing too is where we're working. There's no question that these are some of the most challenging places in the world. The communities that we work in are referred to as last mile communities for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about what you're going to go and put in place, it really needs to be robust programming. It can't be fragile. And so all of these things kind of tie in together. And you should think about the supply chain support. What happens after a project's in place? Who continues to support the community with services, and looking at how robust is that system that's in place? And so really, for us, where we are in the journey right now is taking a really hard look at kind of that last piece and that ongoing maintenance requirement and the ongoing support that's necessary for communities, and looking at, again, most people, when you talk about the need for safe water, immediately you go to water, obviously. But one of the huge things that's just kind of hidden in all that is, how does it get paid for? And where's the money come from? And so making sure that there are strong and robust financial models along that whole way. Mm-hmm. And coming at this, as a charity, and some of these things can be really challenging as you look at how do you make sure you have comprehensive programs in place.
Thanks, George. Ratish, what do you see as a major obstacle?
Yeah, I think, I talked earlier about product development, Laura, and I feel like that is, when we started our work in this space a few years ago, we thought product development was going to be the hardest piece. But little did we know, product development happens to be, quote unquote, the easiest piece. But the market development is really where the rubber hits the road, right? I mean, we need to find, we sort of need to build that ecosystem, and we need to bring actors across the various parts of that value chain, whether it's a distribution partner, the last mile distribution that George talked about, or a service partner, an implementation NGO partner, or an enterprise, a social enterprise like Sanergy, whoever that might be, just bringing those actors together and building that whole ecosystem, having the right financing. Building that whole model is really, really complicated, and it takes a lot of effort. I wish there was a method to just easily go recruit and then sort of build your Lego block completely and go to market that way. And I think that's one of the obstacles we've faced, and we're learning with our partnerships with Synergy and Water Mission and Dig Deep that we need to bring those folks along earlier in the process so that whatever we develop is also ready for the market, not just a product development by itself.
Yeah. And ready for the market has so many different implications. And Lindsay, you know, because you've been developing actual product that's used in community. George, you probably know, all of you know, there's so many twists and turns with product development to make sure has the functionality, the ease of maintenance, the price point, all of that.
Totally, serviceability. Yeah. All of that. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to George McGraw at Dig Deep. Obstacles that you've seen.
I mean, sometimes it all feels like an obstacle.
Yeah.
But I think that's who we are, right? He's George, Lindsay. I mean, we are problem solvers, social entrepreneurs. Like, we love an obstacle. And if it were the same obstacle every day, we wouldn't be doing this work. We love a different obstacle every day to solve. I think that there are sort of the hard technical obstacles that we all face in common. You know, how to solve this problem, how to develop this technology. And sometimes you see a solution to a problem like Lindsay's at Synergy with that beautiful flow chart, and you're just like, oh, the simplicity of that. Like, it's so gorgeous. It's so complicated, but it's so simple. And so, Lindsay, hats off to you. I absolutely adore your work. And we face the same challenges, like the technical challenge of how to get a very high level of service that people are used to in the US, which is clean, 24/7, abundant, hot and cold running water in a place that is very far from infrastructure in many places. Or the same technical challenge you might face in other countries. We have big regions of the US without any plumbers, without any pipe fitters, without engineers. And how do you build that talent pipeline? I think, though, that our biggest challenges in the US are soft challenges. They're cultural. Like, you often think, well, if you work in one country, how hard can it be for George from Los Angeles to support a community in Colorado and getting running water? But often the communities we work in they have like strong cultural identities. They're indigenous, or they're rural Appalachian, or they're Latino families in the southern border states, and you have to build a model that is responsive to those ethnic and cultural needs. And so our team is made up of project managers and directors that are all from the communities that we serve, and all of those solutions are built specifically with that in mind. And I think that's one of our biggest soft challenges. And the last thing I'll say is, this might become as a surprise to folks, and I'm saying it at World Water Week because I want someone to hear me in the US government that's attending this event. But one of the biggest challenges we have in the US is that our government is not focused on solving this problem. Mm-hmm. They've never really laid it out and said, here's the water access gap, and we're going to focus on closing it. And it's ironic because the US is home to hundreds of WASH organizations doing that work abroad. We've made major commitments as an international financing leader through USAID and other programs to solve this problem in other people's countries, while letting it sort of fester and grow in our own backyards. And I think until we have that commitment from government to solve it, which is going to mean, better data and a coordinated response from federal agencies and increased funding in the US, it's not going to get done. And so I think that's a challenge we work on every day.
So thanks for that, George. And thanks for that call to action for our government partners as well, because it does take all of us, right? Private sector, public sector, government sector, all of us together. There is a change management model that I like a lot that all of you remind me of. And it's a sequencing of see it, own it, solve it, do it. And the super important part is seeing it, right? And understanding the problem that we're here to solve. The second step is own it, right? Find people who really feel viscerally passionate about that issue. So see it, own it, solve it, bring those people together with all their talents, and then actually do it. Action it. And all of you through the discussion of obstacles, through the development of product, through the understanding of community, you're all moving through that model in a way with the resources that you have. What I'm going to do is turn the conversation to how you do that with partners, because many times we cannot do this alone. We find that we don't have all the resources or the skill sets or the connections or the understanding of the local market. So I'm going to focus, first of all, on George, Lindsay, and George. You're the founders and leaders of nonprofit organizations that are taking water challenges head on. you're in different areas and you're at different scales, but you each have partners. And how do you prioritize partners? How do you know what a really good partner is so that you don't waste your precious time and energy on a partner that doesn't go anywhere? So if you could each give us a nugget from your learnings and experience on great partnerships from I would say nonprofit viewpoint, and then Ratish, I'm going to go to you, and I'm going to hear what the private sector, how we choose partners. So let me start with, George McGraw. I'm going to go back to you first.
Well, you asked for just a nugget. So very briefly, I think what we look for is the right priorities when we're looking for a private sector partner. I think there are a lot of things that you can get out of a really well-developed partnership. You can get, a marketing push. You can bring a new product to market. You can achieve ESG goals. But I think all of our best partnerships have one thing in common, and that's the client in our case, or the beneficiary in other people's cases, remains at the heart of the partnership, and serving that client and letting them lead in that work remains like the focus, the North Star. And so whenever anything else comes up, it's an opportunity to sort of be flexible or to reimagine the way forward, always keeping that client in the forefront. And I think when that's the case, it makes every problem seem solvable, and it makes, every problem turns into an opportunity. And it really just keeps you focused on the reason for the partnership, which I think is to expand access for us.
So common purpose is what I really heard, finding that partner with common purpose, and then it flows from there. Great. Lindsay, let's go to you.
We focus so much ourselves on deeply understanding the communities where we work. And so as I look for a partner, I want someone who then can help us, can go beyond that, can take what we know so well and think about how do we scale? How do we get to the right level? Whether it's manufacturing, distribution, market access, that can really help to scale the solutions that we've innovated on. I will say, as we grow now and ourselves are becoming kind of, a middle-aged nonprofit or something, I think we also then look for partners that are kind of almost like the startup private sector, that have kind of a niche innovation that can kind of push us, that may come in on a particular digital innovation, a particular, as we start to tackle more on climate change as well, that have really deep expertise and innovation experience in a particular niche. So one end or the other. I want a partner who can really, take what we've innovated and help us scale, or someone who's going to push us to continue to be always more and more innovative.
Great. Thanks for that. George Green, on to you.
Yeah, for us, we're fortunate we have a number of amazing corporate partners and from the private sector. And what the genesis of every one of those relationships was really around products or services. And so as you look at the value chain for a water project, from our perspective, from start to finish, what we've done is we've looked at what do we need to be able to go be successful, and what are the products and services that we're going to actually need to go be a part of this project. And then as we look at what those needs are, then we went out and we looked at, okay, who represents best in class in the industry that is making these things or offers this kind of service. Because there's a reason that they're best in class, and it's that quality in the product is usually a direct indicator also of culture and this alignment with purpose that George mentioned as well. And then the other thing too. So for us, things like pumps and solar panels, but even things like developing business models, like what we were talking about too. All of these are things that. There are groups out there that have done really well, and then the other piece with that too is even looking at how are those relationships sustainable. And so for us, as what drew us to you guys was power solutions and sanitation solutions, and as we engaged with you and with other partners, it's really around hey, set us up with the best possible price to be able to purchase your products. And certainly if we want to talk about other opportunities, we're very much interested in that, but let's decouple those things, because as we want to go and do projects, we don't want to have this request come in front of a board for approval every time. And so we get set up as a customer to engage with groups like you guys to be able to have free flow access to your products. But then what we see is that where we have an alignment with purpose, that all of a sudden it turns into additional conversations that take things much deeper and much bigger partnerships. So beautiful thing.
So thanks, George. So Ratish, from the other side of how do we choose in the private sector a partner?
Yeah, great question, Laura. So I think from our perspective, I think we're generally looking for some qualities that are similar to ours and some competencies or skill sets that are very complementary. So from a similarity standpoint, I think we're really fundamentally looking for partners that have integrity, operate with a lot of integrity, are transparent, and are accountable, right? I mean, we're jointly accountable to deliver the results that we're trying to, the commitments we're making. So that's really fundamentally what we're looking for. And from a complementary perspective, like I said earlier, we're good at, we're a global manufacturer, we're good at product development, marketing, global distribution, but we're really not good at that last mile distribution that George talked about. We're really not good at going into the community and training the consumer on how to use our products or understanding their needs and bringing that insight back into our product development process, or getting access to financing these projects or implementing these projects in these communities. This is where we really seek those partners. And I really like what George was saying about best in class. We think about that ourselves. And how do we, if we're, if I may say, the best toilet manufacturer out there, what if we bring the best waste management company like Sanergy, and what if we bring the two best in classes together? What happens, right? What if, right? That's what we think about. We're a good distributor of large supply chain components as well. What if we bring in an engineering company like Water Mission and help them be successful through the work we do, through the innovations we develop? So that's how we think about partnerships, something that's complementary but also aligns with our core values.
So good answer, Ratish. I can't add anything more to that one. So our time is now up. I need to kind of do a quick wrap up. If I would do kind of a word to our audience from all of you, a fast five, in terms of, we'll kind of go around my screen with Ratish, George Green, Lindsay, and George McGraw, and then I'll end it. What are a few short things that you would say, if that call to action? What could people do to consider making even a bigger impact in this space of really product and partnerships in water solutions? So Ratish, what do you say?
I'll say a couple things. First is think of self-sustaining. Anything we implement together, individually, whatever, has to be self-sustaining. So scope it, design it so that it can last for a long, long time. Bring in the right players at the get-go and design the project so that it has that ability to self-sustain. And then think of scale. That would be the second thing I'd say. Think of barriers to scale and start to think about what you can do to sort of knock those barriers right from the beginning of the project.
Great. George Green.
Yeah, so I've got two perspectives, and on the NGO side, so on my side of that of the relationship with the private sector, the recognition that there are some amazing companies that are out there that have incredible skills and have developed products and have the potential to develop new products. That if we can harness that. And if we can work collaboratively, where we both bring our skills together to be able to speak into things, and there's kind of there's the skills that come from the private sector, and then the skills that come from the NGO world, and how do you mesh those? And what we bring to that conversation is, what is necessary to be able to work in a last mile community, and what are the unique challenges associated with that? And what we've seen when we present those kinds of issues to a group like you guys, then you take your skills and help solve the problems in developing products. And so it can be a really powerful combination, but there definitely are pitfalls that you need to be aware of, where things can just kind of go off the tracks if you're not careful.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Customer. I think everything has to start with your customer. For us, I think it's two customers. That's the users of our products and services, and it's also increasingly the cities themselves as a customer. You know, if we are a vendor service provider to a utility, to a municipality to help them serve everyone with safely managed sanitation and end-to-end waste management. And so we need to both start from that customer kind of bottom up, as well as that bird's eye view, as a city manager view, to kind of create that portfolio of products and services that best suit everyone.
Thank you. And George McGraw.
Well, all of those things. And I would say to build a really effective partnership, you have to really be willing to go the distance. Look for that stick-to-itiveness, look for that longevity. I think how many times has Dig Deep, a member or the entire team, gotten into a partnership with an external partner thinking it was about one thing, about adapting one piece of technology, about solving one problem. And then you really just can't discount that power of experience once you get to know each other, once you've gotten to know the players, once Laura's walked around your facility and she's been in the field. Having that experience allows you to, it expands your capacity to imagine other ways to solve the problem, or even tackle problems you didn't initially intend to tackle. And I think our best partnerships have been sort of longitudinal. They've really gone the distance, and they look nothing like where they started, but they're effectively more impactful, more mature now than we ever could have imagined at the beginning.
And to wrap up, Kohler will continue to develop and fund projects that provide access to safe water. And we will continue to challenge all our associates to get involved, because we do believe in the power of the people to provide solutions. And we're committed to water. It is that equalizer around the world and essential to life as we know it. And, we feel strongly about that. So thank you all for your partnerships and your wisdom. For more information on Kohler, Water Mission, Sanergy, and Dig Deep, visit the information at the end of the presentation. We so thank you all, and we would love a lot of challenging questions.